All right, so who would be at the top of John Elway's wish list?
Well, Kyle Shanahan's the first name that we heard out there that they're going to meet sometime in Atlanta Friday or Saturday. And it makes a lot of sense. Where it doesn't make sense, where people think there's a reservation, is the idea that if Kyle comes, he wants Mike involved because Mike and John Elway haven't been the best of friends since John walked away from the game. John wanted to do something with the organization, and Mike didn't really want him around. And so that lasted for close to a decade. And John just wasn't around too much other than at ceremonial stuff and at games here and there. And then Joe Ellis, the president of the team, I think has an even worse relationship, if you will, with Mike Shanahan. I just don't think they get along very well. It hasn't been reported a lot. People have talked about it, that Joe, who's been with the team forever also, and he's acting as the owner until a new Bolin child is named the controlling owner. But I also know that Joe Ellis isn't going to stand in John Elway's way. And if Kyle Shanahan makes the most sense for this team, and he's a West Coast offense guy, when you talk about growing up with his dad, coaching under Kubiak, innovating the West Coast offense with what they're doing in Atlanta now, and he's a guy that's known John Elway basically his entire life, and I'm sure has a great appreciation for what John means to the game. And he obviously grew up here in Denver, went to high school here in Denver. And with that defense, he knows he doesn't have to think about it at all. And if he can keep Wade Phillips, Kyle makes the most sense. Vance Joseph, they like a lot too. He and Matt Russell, who is John Elway's right-hand man, former All-American linebacker at CU, played together for the Buffs back in the 90s. And Vance had a great interview a couple of years ago, so much so they wanted him to be the defensive coordinator ahead of Wade Phillips, but the Bengals at the time wouldn't let him out of his contract as a defensive backs coach. So I think those guys are at the top of the list. And you can go through some of the other names you might expect. Jim Bob Cooter, although he may be a little young, but he was here as an assistant the year that Peyton Manning set all those records and the Broncos lost to the Seahawks in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And so you come in and get Peyton Manning's offense with Jim Bob Cooter. Mike McCoy is another name when you talk about a veteran coach now who understands the culture in Denver. He would focus on the offense so you could keep Wade Phillips and his staff. So those are, I think, the names at the top of the list, and then there's probably a couple more that will trickle out here in the coming days. But I think it starts with Kyle Shanahan and Vance Joseph.